Hey guys, welcome back. Robocraft Early Access coverage. This is episode 7. I'm Igneous, and today we're taking a look at some design concepts for survivability. And I know what you're thinking. That's all we ever talk about here. That's really because that's like 90% of what this game is about, believe it or not, is building to survive. Anyone can slap a gun on a collection of blocks with some wheels and drive it around and shoot things, but once you've got the guns on there, what else is there to think about? Well, that's the design. We're going to start off, we're going to take a look at some of the upgrades that I've made to my rail sled, because this is the vehicle that I've been using the most. And then we're going to take a look at a new segment involving people dying horribly. And then after that, we're going to take a look at the vehicle that I've been driving in Tier 6 matches that has allowed me to unlock certain goodies like these Tier 6 armor blocks, these blue blocks. Very happy to be upgrading to a navy blue, or, blue, as opposed to the pink, because pink, not necessarily my color. There's a bit of an advantage here in terms of the armor, but I found out that the actual robot ranking is much higher on these blocks as well, and I ended up in Tier 6. I didn't actually queue into the match, but I was looking down, I happened to glance down at the bottom of the screen and realized that my little bar had progressed into the Tier 6 bracket, meaning if I had entered the match, that's where I would have been. It's Tier 6. Definitely don't want that in this vehicle just yet. One of the difficulties with Tier 6 and above right now is if you aren't able to contribute in a match very well before you're destroyed, certainly if you're destroyed at all, it's very easy to lose more robo points to repair your vehicle than you gain as a reward for participating in the match. Now that's going to be changing, which is why I'm not turning it into an editorial or anything like that. It's just, it is what it is, and it's something to be aware of. At the time this video was made, you don't go into Tier 6 to earn RP. You go into Tier 6 to earn tech points to unlock Tier 6 things that you would then put on vehicles to make you more viable in Tier 6 and eventually move up into Tier 7, etc. That's kind of the way it works right now. So I don't want to get up on a soapbox, but this whole idea of going up into higher tiers and grabbing, unlocking components and then bringing them down into much lower tiers, kind of a crappy thing to do. It's a real lack of sportsmanship. It's not something that I want to get involved with. So I'm glad, actually, that I kind of went up into Tier 6 and had to bring things back a little bit in order to get on the vehicle what I wanted to put on the vehicle, because it doesn't put me in that category of one of these people who brings guns from 3 or 4 tiers above them into a match where nobody can really compete against that sort of thing. So we've got a little bit of new armor along here, and then on the back we've got one new railgun. Now I know I just said this isn't the kind of thing that I want to do, but this is a Tier 7 railgun unlocked with Tier 6 points in a Tier 5 match. These guys over here are Tier 6 blocks unlocked with Tier 6 points that are going into a Tier 5 match. So we're not going way above, and one railgun, I can assure you, relative to the other weapons, is probably the least offensive weapon that you could have. If you're talking about something like SMGs, where they're constantly firing, or plasma cannons, which are reloaded much, much faster than these guys, and they have the spread and all the splash damage and stuff. Those are ones I've been on the receiving end of over-tiered weapons like that, and it was a pain in the butt. This one is 3,000 damage over 20 seconds difference compared to these ones. 3,000 damage at this tier is not a whole hell of a lot. It's not even Tier 5 3,000 damage. Well, there are some vehicles, as we'll see, that can't stand up to that, but most can without really thinking too much. Now, one of the things that I've been doing with this vehicle, as I've had the robo points, the currency, to buy the blocks, is upgrade away from the lower tier blocks that I had. So I'll buy some of these pink blocks, this is before I had the blue ones unlocked, and swap out the pink blocks or the orange blocks for pink blocks, then take those orange blocks and swap out the much lower tier blocks like the greens and the blues and the coppers and things. So of all the really low tier stuff that I have left on this vehicle, all it really is the green here, and the rest is orange and pink and that little bit of blue in the front. But that's something that I've been focusing on, is getting a feel for how it works to upgrade the armor blocks on a vehicle as you go. It's very, very expensive. I have to point out, the armor blocks are very expensive. It takes a long time to save up enough currency to actually make a dent and what you're trying to do. But that's what I've been doing. So the goal for this vehicle, very quickly, is now to simply keep this running tier 5 matches for currency, because like I said, tier 6, you don't want to be there to make money, you want to be there for tech points, for earning currency. Tier 5 is where we're going to stay, and with the currency, we're going to buy the materials that we need. Once we have them all, to just do one big sweeping pass over the entire vehicle, upgrade the armor blocks, upgrade the last 2 weapons, upgrade electroplates if I can, if we can make them fit the way I want them to. Put this vehicle into tier 6 in a very good position to contribute to finish unlocking the things that I want to have in order to move up into tier 7. So that's kind of how we're going to go the little back and forth routine. And that's our rail set. I don't want to take forever to do this because we still have to look at this little segment that I'm calling You Don't Want to Be That Guy. It's a collection of footage from some of the matches that I've been in where people died horribly because their vehicle was designed in a way that allowed them to die horribly. And again, the purpose isn't to single out anyone to make them look or feel bad. It's a learning thing to take a look at things rather than trying to explain it. Why not show you guys so you can see there's nothing crazy, there's nothing cheaty, there's nothing bastard going on about this. It's just people in vehicles that die very, very fast. Now this actually ends up being an example of a ground kill, which happens from time to time. I'm not opposed to attacking ground units, but I'm usually keeping my eye to the skies, because that's what the rail guns do a very good job at, is helping with the airborne guys. But this guy, every time I look up, he's sitting there. Don't want to be that guy. Now this ends up being an example of misplaced resources. We've got this guy up in the sky flipping and flopping. He's got his headlights. Didn't help him. Next time, skip the headlights, put some more blocks on there so you can survive, because I wouldn't want to be you. Now this is by far one of my favorite maps because it's so open. It's very unforgiving for flyers because they don't have a lot of natural cover. As you can see, we've got a couple of flyers up above. We've also got a very dangerous situation down on the ground headed our way. So I'm reversing to give myself some time to deal with... Don't want to be that guy. We're here now on the map of green. I don't know how we got a green sky on this planet, but it's green. And we're trying to keep an eye out for flyers, as usual. That's kind of our job early in the match until we're pretty satisfied that all the flyers are dead. Wouldn't want to be that guy. Again, with the green sky, this is kind of the other side, going the other direction. Eyes to the sky is always... You can tell who's looking up, by the way, by looking at their guns to see who's paying attention to what's going on above them. Now, this is kind of a dangerous spot. It can be because it's very, very visible. Wouldn't want to be that guy. Now, this is the icy map. This is the one that kind of messes with the traction of all wheeled vehicles. Hovercraft and aircraft tend to not care. You can see this guy just got bowled over by some dork who needs to learn how to drive. It doesn't help that he's got these stupid wings sticking out the side of his dinosaur. Now, this is where it gets kind of tricky, but I still wouldn't want to be that guy. And no montage would be complete without... You wouldn't want to be me in this scenario. The enemy is kind of advancing on our position. I saw them coming, and I thought, this is a bad place to be. I can't really fight ground units with rails, so I reverse into... Yeah, wouldn't want to be me. Now, what we can take away from all of that is that design does matter. There's nothing wrong with building something because you like the way it looks, it's fun to build, you're having fun, it's creative, whatever. It's just good to be able to have a realistic, outlook in terms of what this vehicle is going to be capable of doing when you get into a match. Is it actually going to survive? Is it going to hold up and let you contribute for as long as possible? Or is your new favorite cosmetic thing just going to wither under enemy fire before you really get a chance to do much? This is the vehicle that I've been taking into Tier 6 matches. It's a hover vehicle. It has no wheels. It has hover blades instead. If we get underneath, you can see there's a hover blade, there's a hover blade. It's got 4 hover blades. These are Tier 5 hover blades. I haven't unlocked the Tier 6 ones yet. It also gets around with thrusters. One interesting little detail very quickly for those of you who might be experimenting and encounter this difficulty, I originally had a stabilizer on the back of this, the same one that we use on the Flyers, just the little rudder kind of guy sticking up on the back. It actually made it much, much harder to steer this thing. I was in the practice map, and some bastard little robot shot off my stabilizer, and instantly, with the remaining thrusters, this thing just gained all the maneuverability in the world. It was fantastic. So just something to keep in mind if you're experimenting and wondering why things aren't working as well as they could. Hover vehicles with stabilizers, their ability to turn is kind of hindered. So that's the whole mobility of this thing, is the hover blades and the 4 thrusters. The thrusters I lose pretty easily. We're going to talk about why. But with 4 of them, I can usually get by. If I lose the back 2 or the front 2, I'm okay. If I lose all of them, things get a little bit dicey. We've got 4 plasma cannons. These are tier... What tier are they? Highest tier Tier 6. 4 Tier 6 plasma cannons. They're unlocked with Tier 5 tech points, so it's not like I did nasty things there either. I would ideally, if I was going to keep this vehicle, hint hint, I would have 6 on here, because that's the most you can have before things kind of go a little bit wonky in terms of what's firing and doing whatever. I put out reasonable damage for a Tier 6 vehicle. 6 would make a big difference. Having those extra 2, I think, would make a big difference. It's just a question of adding some sort of structure onto the vehicle to accommodate those when I haven't got enough blocks to finish the structure as it is. That's hint. We're getting... Some of you have already noticed it. We're getting to it. This sort of almost like a scorpion tail kind of structure that reaches over like this serves 2 purposes. One, it provides a little bit of extra protection for the driver's seat, which is tucked in back there. It also provides a place to mount these rear thrusters, which still, again, if I had the blocks, I would make this a lot more robust and offer a lot more protection to these thrusters. They still get kind of knocked out a little bit easier as well. The front thrusters, I would have some sort of shroud over them to protect them. Again, I ran out of blocks. It's not because, I died 15 million times and it finally sunk in. I ran out of blocks. You can see these shrouds around the hover blades. You can see these ones in the front are fairly robust. They use the armor core shape. They're all nicely linked together. I've taken some pretty hard hits from some really good guns, and lots of them, and I lose the shroud long before I lose the hover blade. It's only when the hover blades are exposed that people are able to actually shoot them off. So that's the armor core concept doing its job and soaking as much damage as possible and diverting it away from the things that you want to preserve. Again, ran out of blocks. I'm missing the bottom half of the shrouds for both of the hover blades on the back end, you can see. So these don't survive as well, but I've also taken hits in the back end where the shroud has basically dissolved and left the hover blade. But more importantly, finally arriving at the elephant in the room, the green blocks are Tier 2. The copper blocks are Tier 1. So this is a vehicle going into Tier 6 matches with Tier 1 and 2 armor blocks comprising at least half the vehicle. And that's a problem. That's been definitely an issue. I tried to gather some footage of you guys to see exactly how this vehicle holds up to what the enemy is doing, given that I'm in Tier 6 and the block's kind of awful. It's difficult to get meaningful footage of that because the camera is almost never exactly where it needs to be so that you can see I got hit by such and such and the shroud basically broke off, but the hover blade was still there. What usually ends up happening is you just see the screen flashing red, and then at some point a few seconds later, you get the camera to zoom out and you see that it's gone, but you can't really see exactly what it was that took it out. So I apologize, it would have been more meaningful if I'd been able to show you instead of just tell you. The design, this whole armor core concept, is designed specifically to absorb damage and direct it away from the critical components, and it does just that very, very reliably without being such a headache to build as sort of the early days of the Triforce. Also, this is a very large vehicle relative to what you'll see other people driving. It's low profile for the most part. We're only looking at 3 blocks high, except for where the big things stick up, and of course the guns and the scorpion tail, which makes it a little bit harder to hit than some of the vehicles that are built like 6, 7, 8 blocks high. They're out there, you staircase builders, you. It's wide so that it's stable. That's sort of a key thing, and it's also much harder to take out all 4 guns in one hit when they're all spread out like this over a wide open vehicle. Now, I'm not trying to imply that if you're serious about being a team player that you need to build your vehicles this way. I'm just saying there's certain concepts that we can have in the back of our mind. Maybe I'll build this one with a wide base so that it's stable and it soaks damage a little bit better than something more compact. Or maybe I'll build something more compact. I'll just keep in mind to try and be as maneuverable as possible to offset the difference. It's just the decision's based on something that actually has meaning as opposed to just arbitrary. I'll do it this way because why not? The why not usually means I don't know. It's just a different language. And so now we know that there are different ways to build things that get different results. And usually more blocks means you can soak more damage. And if you orientate the blocks properly, you get more out of the blocks you've got. You know what we should do? We should take this into a practice match very quickly, just so that you can at least see the dynamics of maneuverability, so that you can take this design and, do what you want with it if you like what you see. Alright, now this is pretty standard hover vehicle fare. You'll notice the vehicle's moving. I'm not touching anything. It's actually following the contour on the ground, which is very normal for these vehicles. Something to keep in mind if you want to build a rail gun platform on a hover vehicle, this movement that you cannot stop when you're on uneven ground is going to interfere with your ability to aim rail guns as well as you could, because any movement causes the reticule to bloom, and that's bad news. So when we actually do get moving, you can see we've got all kinds of maneuverability. We can basically turn on a dime. You could do a little bit of drifting, but sometimes you get so caught up in the drifting you end up over a cliff. In terms of maneuvering on relatively flat ground like I'm on now, this thing is absolutely fine. It's extremely stable. Sometimes all you need to do to avert a disaster is just take your finger off of the accelerator and everything just kind of calms down, and then life is good. But you can see the turning on this guy he's an absolute beast. The one weakness that it has is slightly less forgiving sort of surfaces. It's not like in a vehicle with wheels where if you drive into a mountain, the vehicle just kind of stops. This guy will want to flip. Or just to make a liar out of me, he'll climb the entire fucking mountain. There we go. See, this happens a lot with this vehicle, and your steering is reversed when it happens. And really the only way to correct it is to do the same as what kind of got you in that sort of position. It takes some practice learning how to right your hovercraft once you flipped it. It's even more difficult if your hovercraft is slightly damaged, because it's not going to maneuver the same as when it's fully assembled 100% hull. But you can manage. You can do what you need to do. So that's one weakness of the design with any hovercraft. It's very easy to flip if you're not paying attention. Like, I have a tendency when things are going crazy, especially in my rail sled, to reverse hard and hit things and flip. It kind of complicates things. And then, of course, we're going to want to know, what can we do with these things? I know they're tier 1 bots, but we're not trying to demonstrate how badass I am. We're just trying to give you an idea of the dynamics of the vehicle. Wide base so that it's stable in most surfaces, spread out with the guns and such so that it's not easy to kill them all with one plasma blob. I don't know how he survived. Anyways, it would be better with 2 more plasma cannons. It would be better with more protection for the thrusters and the driver's seat, and it would definitely be better with replacing the Tier 1 and 2 armor blocks with the shenanigans. Really a fun vehicle to play. If I were to bring this down so that it would fit into a Tier 5 match, this thing would be just an absolute laugh riot all day long. So that's my rail hovercraft. We're going to be doing a special project. That's why I'm tearing this down, because if I don't have the blocks to finish building this, I don't have blocks to start another project. We're going to be doing kind of a twist on the railgun cannon thing, based on something that I saw today that I thought was a really interesting idea. So I'm going to do my spin on it. That'll be in the next episode. So if you want to be notified when I add that video, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to my channel, or you can follow me on social media and get a notification that way. Links for social media are in the information section below the video. Please do leave your comments and feedback, because they're important and I read them all. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.